So, you like to go fast, huh? Jump around like a maniac? Little mosquito somehow takes down those giant monsters? Nice to meet you. I'm T-Bug. I'm just a Fenk with a Fenk brain, and you've come to the right place. Let me tell you all about a little thing called Aerial Insect Glaive. In contrast to the simplicity of its raw power and a grounded playstyle, our current aerial leaning glaive brings all of its recurring systems together at once. Combos and cancels, vaulting, mobile positioning, mounting, Kinsect powders, and Kinsect damage are all relevant, with offsets as a newly introduced bonus. This video exists to help sort through all of this, since these systems are a lot more relevant when using this weapon to do anything other than... While that's great and all, personally,
I prefer the air.
I'd rather stay on the move. And for faster or more difficult monsters, the times where it works out consistently are far less frequent, and they're only gonna get faster once Master Rank rolls around. In fact, if you want to utilize powders, aerial is the most effective way to do it, since its charged attack marks the monster automatically and doesn't recall all the time. But I think I'm putting the glaive before the Kinsect, if you know what I mean. Let's take a look at what we're working with. The vault. While not done in the air, it is the primary means by which a hunter gets there. After an attack, or while in focus mode on the ground, holding back on the joystick turns it into a backwards vault as well. This gains less height, but has increased iframes and immediate horizontal velocity. It's a bit of a panic button. The aerial evade. It has low iframes, but it's easily accessible and quickly launches you in a direction. This launch is also an instant change momentum, which tends to make tracking moves miss. Marking shot. Fire a marking pellet and land shortly after. Kinsect will attack wherever the marker lands, leaving a powder cloud behind. While this can be handy for getting hard to reach extract, it still relies on the Kinsect actually reaching the marked location. So it's most useful for knocking down rocks or other environmental hazards. It doesn't work on everything though. Some things such as the dam in the forest or Jindahad's wall need to be pulled with a slinger hook. Marking hilt bash. Same thing as marking shot, but done with the bottom of the glaive. It can be more useful than the shot for grabbing extracts since it's close range, but using jumping slash is faster. It's most useful after jumping off the sacred since jumping slash isn't available. Focus strike hits a wound, bounces off the monster, and fires the Kinsect down. This collects one of each extract and destroys the wound. Before we get into the next section, it's important to note that holding focus mode directs attacks to where the camera is looking, and commands the Kinsect to attack in tandem. An attack with your weapon equals an assist attack from the Kinsect as well. You swing once, they will too. You swing 5 times, they will too. The Kinsect returns to the arm right after, and faster Kinsects do so more quickly. This is a powerful tool for gathering extracts. Keep in mind that Kinsects will not assist on attacks other than descending thrust without focus mode active. I recommend using gyro controls if you have them for more intuitive aiming. Because of how much we'll be moving, I also recommend changing this setting to disable. That way, instead of the target camera always looking at the monster, just like constantly panning towards them, you can tap it when you need to look at them. And of course, it doesn't look at the training dummy. That's useful. Oh, there we go. Jumping slash is useful for collecting extracts and landing quickly after an evade. Its strong version is kind of weird and doesn't continue as you fall like it used to. It still collects extracts and hits a few times. Jumping advancing slash, the basis of this style, setting the precedent of serving as both an offensive and defensive tool at once. Also known as JAS, or JAS for short. It can be used to gather extracts, attack, and evade all at the same time. Use it in tandem with jumping slash to great effect. Using this moves you in a sort of arc, lifting briefly and launching forward, then letting you fall as you swing. On a hit, it ends in Vaulting Dance, a bounce which lifts you back into the air, allowing you to chain multiple attacks. An effect I like to call Aerial Ramp Up causes airborne attacks to be stronger following a Vaulting Dance. This stacks twice and lasts until landing, meaning attacks are at full potency after 2 bounces. After 3, the next S-Jas or Jas will not perform Vaulting Dance again. One Vaulting Dance also fully charges Descending Thrust or Strong Descending Thrust. No need to hold the charge button if it's inconvenient. X and A will result in a full charge as long as you've bounced once. Strong Jumping Advancing Slash, or S-Jas for short. This is the star of the show, and your bread and butter. You'll be using this move a lot. You land 5 hits in quick succession, following a similar but lighter arc than Jas, and moving you forward as you attack. It ends in a Vaulting Dance after landing the final hit, like Jas. Descending Thrust can be used to interrupt other actions, such as S-Jas, Jas, or Jumping Slash, and can also offset monsters' attacks. The offset property takes a moment to start, but then stays active while falling. This offset property is obviously useful, but Descending Thrust also moves you rather quickly. This can be used to maneuver laterally and get out of attacks. The end of Descending Thrust marks the monster, making your Kinsect leave a powder cloud. Poison, Paralysis, and Blast Clouds deal damage while building towards a status effect, while Recovery Powders heal nearby hunters instead. Conveniently, the end of Descending Thrust usually hits the Powder Cloud left behind, immediately building up status or granting healing. While Descending Thrust can be performed by holding A and then releasing it, I recommend tapping X and A together instead. The power of Descending Thrust changes depending on the charge level and aerial ramp up. Charge level is based on how long A was held before releasing, or if a Vaulting Dance was performed prior, as mentioned previously. Unless you'd rather it continue to lay powders, remember to recall your Kinsect afterward so it's available for subsequent assist attacks. Rising Spiral Slash, otherwise known as RSS, spends extracts to lift the hunter into the air and deal several powerful hits. RSS is potent, but needing to get extracts back too often can be costly. Know the monster and plan accordingly. For monsters where RSS tends to get all or 2 of 3 extracts, or where it's easy enough to grab the rest quickly, it's good to use frequently. Otherwise, it tends to be better to keep up your extracts for a bit before dumping out an RSS. Keep in mind the movement of RSS. It's good to aim for a spot that might hit a couple different weak points if you can. This ensures that you'll be hitting weak spots with most of the ticks, and increases the odds that you'll get different colors of extract once RSS is finished. RSS also grants Hyper Armor while in use. Hyper Armor prevents knockback entirely, meaning it can be used to attack through roars or through a monster's attack. However, this also means that multiple attacks can hit you in quick succession, so try not to be too gutsy, lest you tank 3 Mervs to the face. Any jumping move besides RSS or the Focus Strike costs stamina to use. Tossing out RSS once stamina gets low to let it recharge is usually an effective rhythm. Attacks can be performed even if it would cost more stamina than you have available. However, in the case of S-Jas, you will not bounce if you lack available stamina. Jumping off of the Sacred allows the use of certain aerial attacks, including Jas or S-Jas depending on your extracts. So how does it all come together? As you can see, a common theme is movement. Even if you choose to do nothing, once airborne you will continue to move downward until landing. That's gravity after all. Getting used to that basic premise is essential. I often see new hunters trying out the style and not realizing how close they are to a monster vertically, usually overestimating their height. A hit still counts even if the monster's only hitting your legs, but that's not intuitive to everyone. The camera even conveniently blocks the part of our model that gets hit, so it's just a matter of getting a feel for it. Aerial Glaive is about remaining in motion. It's much harder to hit a moving target, but more importantly, it's about control over that motion. As you may know from Newton, once you pick a direction, you'll keep going that way until you do something to change direction or are otherwise stopped. This is the main defensive advantage of Aerial IG. For example, S-Jas can attack during monster attacks by hovering just out of reach or moving away from where the damage is, like so. However, we can also choose to stay in roughly the same area as needed, by just bumping into something. You want to hit that meaty head weak point with the full attack? Just plow right into it. What's extra nice about this in Wilds is that we can interrupt it. Say, for example, a monster is sitting still, but going to use an attack soon. Jump against the face of the attacks at the weak point, then interrupt with Descending Thrust to avoid it. Optionally, jump right into the attack to offset it instead. Something to keep in mind with the offset properties is that the Descending Thrust moves quite a bit, so when trying to land an offset, make sure that you move toward where the monster's attack will be. They won't always track you dead on, and sometimes just miss, depending on timing or positioning. As a result of our game plan of playing Chicken 24/7, an integral part of Aerial is learning the 3D shape of monsters' hitboxes. There are scant few iframes to rely on, mostly just positioning and movement. Knowing what attacks you can fly over or dive under, and where, is the core of your mastery, and determines how well you'll do anything else. Keep a sharp eye out for those safe zones. Once you know what to look for, they're everywhere. It's only a matter of reaching them. For the most part, this is plainly intuitive, and practice from other weapons translates directly to Aerial. In general, touch equals damage. This sounds obvious, but I've also seen many a case where a hunter didn't expect a wing to deal damage because the monster was swinging its head. Many monsters have hitboxes that cover their torsos or tails, when the majority of the attack is being done with an arm or a wing, and Aerial tends to interact a lot more with those than other weapons do, due to its heavy interaction with 3D space. Generally, hitboxes like these are communicated by, well, the monster moving that body part during an attack, even if it isn't the focal point. So keep an eye out. This is important to account for in terms of avoiding damage, but we can also exploit it to land offsets more consistently or safely. For example, on Raydow's wing drag, his body is much bigger than just the line his wing makes on the ground, but both will hit you. It's a large space you'll need to watch out for to avoid this attack. However, by the same principle, landing an offset is also possible on the body and not just where the wing is touching the ground. His double wing swipe attack has a similar property. The most consistent way to offset it is to just aim for center mass shortly before Ray lifts his wing out of the ground. This attack is also a great example of a situation where the whole part of the monster is relevant. In this case, it's better to go towards and over the wing that's not being dragged to avoid it. Otherwise, you tend to get this. Getting used to the movement should be your highest priority. If you need to, get extracts on the ground and then go airborne. However, once you feel comfortable enough, you should definitely practice using the unenhanced Jas. It moves almost as quickly as the aerial evade, and with it, you can rely more on the positioning you practice to power up instead of needing to land. This is especially useful just after performing RSS, since you rely a little less on luck and/or 3-color Kinsects to be at full power again quickly. I mentioned it lightly earlier, but the path the Kinsect takes when gathering via an assist has a bit of an odd shape. While you might expect it to hit just in front of you, the Kinsect is offset such that it's possible to reach around a monster to grab an extract on the opposite side from you. Whatever that path hits first is the extract color you get. While we're on the topic of evasion, let's talk about that backwards vault. Just about any time you land, this move can be performed right after. It's a great panic button, and if the iframes don't save you, the sudden motion often will. And any other action can be taken right after it. Quite simply, remember that it's there, and it will serve you well. Offensively, as I mentioned before, most of what you want to be doing is probably S-Jas and RSS. Get extracts as soon as you can, and keep them up as often as possible. Chaining S-Jas is pretty effective, since the second and third attacks get boosted, as does Ascending Thrust. Most of the time, this is what you'll want to be doing while monsters are rampaging or chaining attacks together. Toss out Descending Thrust to maneuver as needed or fish for offsets, or when you know an opportunity is coming up to press for RSS. Save RSS for the brief moments of opportunity, such as the knockback of an offset, or attacks that have long animations but won't hit you. And save for big openings, like knockdowns or stunts. If you're on the wrong side when a monster falls over, no biggie. Just jump over them to a better spot. And if you know they won't be down for long, it can be effective to just dump out an S-Jas to make the next attack stronger once they do get up, whether that's Descending Thrust or another S-Jas. It sets you up to react quickly to whatever they decide to do. I suppose it's time we discuss the Gammoth in the room. As a result of its inherent evasion and frequency of attacks, S-Jas and other aerial moves have lower raw motion values than our grounded attacks. Similar to other fast-hitting weapons, this means that Element is going to do some of the heavy lifting when it comes to damage output. Because of how elemental damage is calculated, it can benefit our high frequency of attacks more than raw. The most important part of which is the base element. That might sound odd if you're aware of how much armor and weapon skills boost our element, but there's a very important reason why. Kinsects only inherit base element damage from your weapon. Not raw, not status, and only before boosts are applied. I'd love to see this, Jinx. Oh, Capcom, please. It's still important to boost your weapon's element damage, but in my opinion, affinity comes first after base element, since the boost from critical hits is just that major. Anyhow, each S-Jas does 5 hits, right? Although the Kinsect hits each of those times as well, without a healthy dose of element, the damage of each of those can be kind of insubstantial. But between your weapon's element and the Kinsects, the total of all those hits is nothing to scoff at, given the right elemental matchup, of course. Kinsects with the combo boost trait are an easy choice as a result, since it's one of the few ways of boosting their damage outside of base element, and only applies during focus mode attacks like S-Jas. But we'll go over that more later. To make this even better, wounds tend to be really weak to element. In some cases, a wound can take a monster's element weakness from its lowest value to its highest. It's especially important to be aware of when a monster's raw weak spot doesn't align with its elemental one. Ideally, you'll hold on to wounds in spots like that, and spend other less impactful ones first. I'd recommend communicating with your teammates about this if possible. And this leads right into another important aspect of aerial. Since you're doing aerial attacks on the regular, mounts are a common occurrence. Master Mounter isn't needed, but might help you score an extra 1 or 2 in the tougher hunts. S-Jas and Descending Thrust in particular build up plenty of mounting damage. Jumping Slash does affect it, but not by a lot. You're better off relying on chaining S-Jas if you're desperate for a mount. First one to happen usually is right at the start of a hunt, but the second and third take more build-up. Mounting, when done right, provides an opening right after a powerful finisher, but also leaves behind wounds you can exploit afterward. I always make sure to make 2 wounds while mounted, then break 1 for the finisher. Ideally leave the one that's most useful for the element boost, or for your teammates. What's that? Oh, let me check the time. Oh shoot, already? It's bug o'clock! Kinsects are integral to Insect Glaive in general, but are especially so to aerial. As you can see, they're more than just a source of buffs, so what you choose can have quite an impact on your hunts. Due to Aerial's Descending Thrust marking the monster, it also has a more regular, less intrusive usage of powders than grounded. Keep in mind what powders your Kinsect drops when choosing one, since you might actually see them activate now and then. Kinsects follow a few different archetypes, what I'll call power, speed, and tech, although there is some overlap. Power-type Kinsects have high raw damage, and thus tend to deal more damage per hit. They have a beetle-like appearance, apparent in Coldrone, the Alacanids, or their blunt counterparts. For future reference, each Kinsect has a cutting and blunt species. These are side by side in the equipment box. I'll be referring to each species by its cutting version only, except for Omega, because it's only blunt. Speed Kinsects do what it says in the tin. They move faster. This is generally helpful for collecting extracts quickly or from afar, since there's less time spent waiting for the Kinsect to reach the monster. They can be particularly helpful for large monsters like Gog, whose wings are often hard to reach during its flying phase. Speed Kinsects are also reliable for focus mode attacks, since they return to the arm almost immediately after finishing their assist. Speed Kinsects resemble moths and butterflies, their streamlined appearance belying their swiftness. Windchopper, Pseudocath, and Granthakar make up this group. Tech, or powder-type Kinsects, tend to have high stamina, and are the only type to contain paralysis powder producers. Their high stamina lets them continue to drop powders for a longer period before needing to return to the hunter's arm. The designs of these are more varied, but they tend to resemble wasps or ladybugs in the cutting and blunt species respectively. Fiddlebricks, Concatamon, and Richiprane make up this group. Though there are a couple who don't really fit just one archetype too. Empress Wing is somewhere between a tech and a power Kinsect, with a focus on using its powders for healing. Similarly, Omega's OMG is an in-between of power and tech Kinsects. If you want a fast Kinsect who can dump out blast procs, OMG is a more stamina-efficient version of Pseudocath, requiring less management. Now, let's go over their skills. Harvest Extract is the first you might encounter. Old reliable, one might say. It allows the Kinsect to gather 2 extracts at a time, and 3 when empowered from a charged Kinsect throw or RSS. These are most helpful with groups of monsters, or on monsters who have different colors nearby each other, since you'll frequently grab all 3 during an RSS. You may notice that 2 out of 3 of the power-type Kinsects have Harvest Extract, which makes up for their slowness quite a bit. However, a couple others also get it, namely Wind Chopper, which I would consider to be the most effective for gathering extract. Due to its speed over the other extract gatherers, it is one of the most reliable Kinsects for always having extracts up. It comes at the cost of damage and a useful powder though. Recovery powder is pitiful without the powder boost or green extract boost to complement it. Speaking of green extract, Extract Boost Recovery strengthens the healing effect of green extract. The use cases of this are fairly niche though, since green extract isn't always readily available. However, it could be useful for monsters like Omega, which conveniently tends to poke its green extract spot out exactly where it's safe above it anyway. Weak point focus boosts damage from focus strikes when breaking wounds or exploiting a monster's weak point, such as Raydow's horns after it uses its lightning cannon, or Gypsaros's crest after it flashes. The Kinsects that have this boost have lower raw though, so it mostly helps them keep up a little bit rather than dealing more damage than Kinsects with more raw power. Kinsect Boost Fast Charge reduces the charge time on the charged Kinsect throw. Useful if you like to use the Pierce to get extracts often, or want to deal damage directly with the Kinsect from afar for some reason. Kinsect Boost Stamina Recovery boosts the rate at which your Kinsect restores its stamina while resting on your arm. Simple as. And now for what I consider to be the most underutilized traits. Attack Boost Powder increases the effectiveness of the powders or Kinsect places. Recovery Powder heals more, and Status Powders build up status more quickly. A Blast Kinsect without this boost takes 5 powders to proc Blast a second time on the training dummy, while one with the boost only takes 3. There are only 3 Kinsects which have this trait. Empress Wing, as mentioned earlier for its potent healing powder, OMG, and Pseudocath. Of these, Pseudocath stands out most to me. I've always liked this Kinsect due to its appearance and its speed, but it's actually pretty reliable in general. Blast procs are frequent due to the boost, its speed ensures that it never misses a combo attack or spends too long reaching the monster, its power is high for a speed Kinsect, and the quick charge means less time wasted grabbing an extract that just won't take, or multiple at once. Overall, a really solid choice. And finally, Kinsect Combo Boost Element. This boosts the elemental damage Kinsects deal when joining in for assist attacks, such as during S-Jas with focus mode. The usefulness of this to us goes without saying. It's just extra damage. Considering how frequently the Kinsect hits with our aerial style, it's at least worth considering. It is a fairly limited trait, just like the powder boost. The most useful instance in my opinion is on the Monarch Allocanid. It gets the element boost while not giving up much raw for it, and it can place poison powders. Its speed isn't great, but it's just enough to keep up with successive S-Jas and dodges most of the time. The extra stamina recovery helps in case you do get separated though. Granthakar is a faster option, but it loses a lot of raw. It also places unboosted healing powders, but likely makes up for it by boosting green extract. And Cancatamin is kind of a middle ground. It is the same traits as Monarch Allocanid, but lacks the raw to output as much with it. It would really rather be spending most of its time placing powders anyhow, since it has enough speed to not really benefit from the extra stamina recovery after assist attacks like Monarch Allocanid. It is one of only 2 options that place paralysis powders, however. So if you want para from just ascending thrust powders rather than leaving the Kinsect out, this is the bug for you. It won't be the best at para output or assist attack damage, but it will boost both. Overall, my top picks are Monarch Allocanid for outright damage, Pseudocath for reliability and blast procs, and Wind Chopper, just due to its effectiveness at extract gathering. Great for players who want to use RSS as often as possible with a little practice. Outside of new traits, I really hope we get a Kinsect with both the powder and element boosts, or an extract gatherer with either in Master Rank. Well, now that we've talked bugs, we've talked moves, and we've talked strategies, what are some useful skills for the hunter in all this? As per usual, affinity is always useful. Crits are a big jump in raw damage, and potentially a boost to element as well. Getting crits as often as possible tends to be our highest priority for most any weapon. Weakness exploit and latent power are the standouts, Arguably, all the affinity one needs could come from just these two skills at max level. Weakness Exploit is just generally good. It increases affinity greatly on weak points or wounds, and even more on weak points with wounds. Weak spots are never more than a moment away with our movement, and being airborne provides easy access to some that are typically harder to reach. Based on that, Weakness Exploit is kind of a no-brainer. But not as much of a no-brainer as Latent Power. It's virtually a must-have, in that it boosts our affinity, but also greatly decreases our stamina usage. 3 levels of the skill decreases our stamina consumption by the maximum amount possible, roughly half. Keep in mind this does stack with Dash Juice, Constitution, and Stamina Surge, but only until the cap. If you have 3 points or more, you get no further boost than just Latent Power itself, all while boosting our affinity by 10% per level while active. This is great, but you'll need to keep in mind the activation condition. Latent Power activates after taking enough damage, or waiting several minutes in combat. The damage does not have to be all at once, and the Corrupted Mantle can help accelerate Latent Power's activation while traveling to the monster or between areas. Raydow's set bonus is highly recommended, since it increases the duration that Latent Power stays active by quite a bit. Counter-Strike is one of the few raw-based skills I actively recommend for Aerial. It's just easy to proc due to offsets and wanting to take a hit now and then for Latent Power anyway. It also only costs 2 slots for a pretty sizable raw boost. Agitator is generally a good skill since it's almost always active, however the split between raw attack and affinity isn't as helpful to us here. Lagiacrus or Gore Magala's set bonuses are greatly helpful for boosting our affinity. With full Wex and 3 Latent Power, one or the other can help round out to 100% affinity. Just remember to slot in antivirus if you're using Gore. There are a few skills that are good to just have a level of. Chiefly among them is Flayer. Wounds are always helpful, especially for Element as mentioned. S-Chest can sometimes proc Flayer's build up twice in a row, contributing even more towards an extra wound than Flayer's damage proc. You want to have the activation from it, but you don't need really more than that. Also among those 1-point wonder skills are Burst and Coalescence. Burst activates often since we hit so many times in succession. It's basically always up. And Coalescence activates by clearing statuses, and thus has great synergy with Gore Magala's set bonus. Plus, we're dodging all the time, so random blights tend to clear semi-passively. These two are most potent in their first level, but can be worth going for more if you have room. Gogmazios' set bonus, Gogmapocalypse, is also a huge element boost that is active anytime a monster is enraged, just like Agitator. It's strong, but can be hard to build around. If you can set up for 4 pieces, Peak Performance is a strong, consistent raw boost on top of it that the shield helps maintain. Very helpful for Omega and Gog, but I would only recommend going for 4 points with an Raydian weapon. You can use Mizutsune's set bonus, Bubbly Dance, to activate Coalescence and maybe Lord's Fury consistently. I like to run a set like this now and then for fun, because bubbles, but I wouldn't say it's particularly potent compared to the other options. Lord Soul, on the other hand, will always be recommended. It's a huge raw boost and a significant survival boost if things get rough. It's not the easiest to build for while still getting all the skills we want, but there are plenty of options with how powerful the Arch-Tempered armors are. Airborne is a must-have, especially in this case. It's a meaningful damage boost just for being in the air. It has some decent 3-slot decos, but this is an ideal skill to have on a talisman instead, since it's a little slot hungry compared to our other options. Similarly, the elemental boost decos are an obvious choice. These are the most potent source of element boosts, and other element skills boost them further. There are 3 slot decos for every element to grant the max boost, as well as an extra point in something else. Of these, I'd most recommend Handicraft or Razor Sharp. Higher sharpness is always better. The impact of sharpness is actually even higher for element than it is for raw, so keeping your sharpness up and making sure you have the highest level available is absolutely in your best interest. Crit boost is always good, and we're boosting our affinity. I'd recommend tossing one in a 3 slot if you're using an Raydian weapon. Similarly to crit boost, crit element is worthwhile with a healthy amount of affinity. The boost you get from it is about the same as filling in the last 2 levels of crit boost anyway. However, 3-slot crit element decos can also grant an extra point of another skill, namely Handicraft, so they're the better option in this case, IMO. I used to recommend Focus as an option to cut down on the charge time for Descending Thrust, but nowadays with the XA input, it really isn't needed. Now, when building an Raydian, the order of priority stats-wise is the same. I recommend building with affinity pieces, boosting base element with the Gogma upgrade, then boosting element and/or raw with the stat rolls. The 15% is usually enough to put you 100% without relying on wounds. If your set otherwise already gets to 100% on its own, just boost the damaging stats and maybe sharpness. Just keep in mind that the element boosts here are the only way of increasing the Kinsect's element further. And that should about cover it. To wrap up, here are some builds I've used to beat the hardest challenges in the game, solo and with a group. Here's one that doesn't rely on the Raydian roll, but still has the necessary set bonuses and skills, since I have yet to get Gogma Apocalypse and Lord Soul and all my different elemental weapons anyway. Here's another built around 4 pieces of Gog, which I use for Gog, Omega, and Arcveld, since they're all weak to Dragon, and another one without a Talisman, or relying on an Raydian roll for a set bonus, if you want to start with a decent base and build from there with whatever you've got. I've been saying it for years, but aerial IG always gets underestimated, and to a degree, I understand why. Its benefits over staying on the ground all the time aren't in the form of direct damage, and it tends to rely more heavily on element. Element being, the most cryptic and complicated form of damage in Monster Hunter, and its effectiveness next to raw varies greatly game to game. Though, judging by the past few games, it'll likely get stronger in Master Rank, which would be great news for us. It's easy to forget about, but mounts are a great help to a team of hunters. They have a huge impact on a hunt. And the blast procs and element boost even contribute a pretty hefty amount of output. I can feel a significant difference between when I'm using Pseudocath versus Windchopper, or Monarch Arcanid versus Pseudocath. Being airborne on top of our sheer mobility really helps us keep up with certain monsters. If you're having trouble with AT Arcveld, it might just be time to grab a dragon weapon and give aerial a go. That, and it lets us do things we'd have to rely on iframes for otherwise. For example, when I run Savage Omega, I usually do an evasion tank, or swap off for another tank while also wailing on Omega, since there's no need for me to invest in defense skills for the most part. We can deal plenty of dragon damage with how weak Omega's face is, while staying above most of his attacks with proper timing. As long as you aren't super low during the end of an S-Jast or needing to land, you can fly right over the Fire Pizza or Ice Wave and just keep smacking him. And helpfully, that rear power unit is right there whenever he's enraged, which grants some healing extracts now and then. You wouldn't even be hitting that from the ground. Performing RSS right in his face tends to be enough to grab enmity, and it also basically always grabs red. Orange and white are very distinctly separate and easy enough to grab with Jast too. You'll always be ready to offset his dash attacks as needed with red readily available, and how quick Descending Thrust offset property comes out. Just make sure not to dive too early. Larboard Starboard is more or less free as long as you read it right. Just aim S-Jast the right way and you'll flow right around it. A single S-Jast or RSS can effortlessly clear a whole set of rocket fits for you and your team, while getting right up in Omega's grill safely. His most destructive attacks, outside of, the big you die now laser, are his beams and Merv rockets. When he shoots the beams, we're more or less forced to stay above his center more than is ideal, but at least the rear power unit is still reachable for a good hit zone. And nobody can deal well with Mervs without tons of iframes. However, the momentum of aerial dodges and S-Jas even tends to carry you out of their reach if the height isn't enough already. This is one prime advantage of aerial IG over blocking weapons. And the laser is easy enough for an IG to deal with at least. Just jump to the side as needed, or even over enemy. Keep in mind, however, that it will cause Omega to rotate towards you, and plan or communicate accordingly. In some cases, you can point him towards a wall though, which is super helpful for your teammates, providing them a pretty big opening that otherwise would be pretty risky. It's no comparison to a shield user just blocking it all, but still effective. An airborne glaive is also ready at a moment's notice to knock down rocks onto Omega with the aerial Kinsect marker. This can be used to interrupt Omega's scarier attacks and get some chunky damage while you're at it. If you're really courageous, you can even keep wailing on him during a tantrum, assuming it even happens. He's most liable to hit you with a jumping stomp, so get some hits in during the mini pizza and be ready to dodge. I really only do this on regular Omega and not Savage. It's just not worth the risk, especially if you're having a rough enough time to even see the tantrum at any point besides the end of the hunt. Omega's really fun, and satisfying to master. If you want to challenge your aerial chops, Go slap the robot a few times. Anyhow, I suppose that'll be it for this guide. Thanks for staying with me all the way through. There was quite a lot to cover. And shout out to my partner Bear for listening to me rant and ramble about this stuff time and again. It wouldn't be nearly as cool without her here. Of course, if there's anything I missed or something you'd like me to go over, leave a comment and let me know. I'll do my best to respond, or maybe I'll add it to a future video down the line. And if you'd like to see how I play, or watch some Insect Glaive stuff, or just some Monster Hunter stuff, come visit myself and Bear over on our Twitch. Links in the description. We play Monster Hunter all the time. It's our Saturdays game at the moment, and our lobby's usually open, so come by. Maybe join in a hunt or two. We also upload our streams to this channel, so if you missed one, or you're in an inconvenient time zone for it, or you just want to toss some past streams on for whatever reason, that's here on YouTube as well. Depending on how well this video does, and how motivated I am, expect to see more Monster Hunter, and especially Aerial Glaive stuff from me. I don't know if I'll really do as many long videos like this, but once the expansion releases, I might make a follow-up just to cover what's changed, so hit those sub and bell icons and whatnot, and make sure you don't miss it. That's all from me. May you soar high and your Kinsect higher. Happy flying!